Hello, good evening, and welcome to Sunday Night Breakdown. Almost like we planned it 5 years ago, about 6 o'clock on a Sunday. That's not bad, is it, Dave?
Not at all.
So,
Not at all.
plenty of action to get through. So, let's start with the game you were at. You were calling, in fact, Dave. Newcastle Eagles 110, Cheshire Phoenix 101. Ward Hibbert, Defoe, Neighbour all listed but didn't play. Scott Grayson into the starters for Cheshire. This was basically a track meet, just up and down. Not really any runs in the first half, just you score, we score. I'm sure you loved it, Dave.
No, Ulf. I think Ulf didn't play either. I'm not sure if he was unfit or whether he wasn't on the bench, but he didn't play. Um, yeah, yeah. It was interesting actually watching it up close and spilling my brains out about it because um, Newcastle were trying. You could see Newcastle were trying to avoid it getting into that.
Mm,
Particularly with Pulliam at the point guard, he's far more of a walk it up point guard.
mm,
And and there were times in the first half whereby you thought they were just kind of winning that psychological edge of doing that. And at the end of the first half, it was 46-44, which is probably about where Newcastle would have wanted it, albeit they did a good job of keeping Cheshire off the 3-point line. They gave up some back cuts and they overplayed and at times just were a little bit sloppy. Um, Cheshire themselves were, obviously far more, we're going to come up far more competitive than they had on Sunday against
Sunday
Bristol.
last week, yeah.
That's the type of game whereby you're playing for your pride the next game after you lose by 30 at home.
Mm,
And overall, it wasn't actually a badly played game actually. For 110, 101, for all my normal twistiness about those type of scores.
mm.
And maybe because I was talking about it at the time, that might be why I wasn't able to kind of sitting in the crowd just getting hit up at all these back cuts that are going missed. But I thought there was some good offense and some adjustments because it's the fifth time those teams have played each other.
Yeah, yeah.
And there was different things. I mean, Scott Grayson started the game and he guarded the ball and he was exceptional. That was a tweak that that Cheshire had thrown in. Newcastle are still integrating obviously new point guard. So and they were down downward Hibbert, which is an issue for them as well defensively. So yeah, the first half there wasn't much going on. It was kind of back and forward, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Pulliam had 14 points in the first 5 minutes of the third quarter, and then 8 points from Long had the Eagles into a 10-point lead.
Yeah, it was about the first run they got. They just managed, firstly, I think they figured out at half time. I'm assuming they figured out at half time that they could get to the rim on
Mm,
Cheshire and Pulliam in particular seems to be quite shifty. He's a bit taller than you'd see when you see him on the screen. He's about 6'3" and he's got long arms and he's got those kind of reachy layups, where you take your
yeah.
final step and then you kind of reach out and suddenly you're at the rim and you're not quite sure how he got there. Um, and obviously Cheshire hadn't seen him, so they sort of saw him last time they played, but he got injured at the end, and even then. The league hasn't seen much of him, so that was a little bit of a surprise to see him go for 14 points in 4 minutes. Because the one thing Newcastle aren't short of is guys who can score a lot of points in a few
Yeah,
minutes.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Kind of the MO of their whole team. Um, and then it was good. After that, it was good because that was kind of the first little bit of separation. But 10 points is
It's
against
nothing.
Cheshire,
Yeah,
6 points
yeah,
against everybody else. So
yeah.
it wasn't real separation. And it was good then because it got a bit testy.
Mm.
Um, and Austin Hood in particular, got into Pulliam a little bit, and it was good to see the kind of the give and take going back and forward. Quite enjoyed that.
Before we get into that, Scott Grayson, was it Scott Grayson? I think it was Scott Grayson. He
Yeah,
on the third quarter buzzer was called a foul and then uncalled a foul.
yeah,
I rocked and rolled it on Synergy. There's definitely contact before the light comes on or before
yeah.
the buzzer is sounded. He's probably got his foot down. To me it's a two-shot foul because Newcastle are over the limit, but replay.
Two things actually. Replay on one. It was only 1.3 seconds,
Mm,
and I've talked on this on here before about something like that. Anything under about 1.5 seconds, it's very difficult for the clock manager to get it right and to start it right. So the question is, do the refs count it or does the clock count it? I can't concede. I'm kind of on the side of the refs on this one, because I can't conceive that he could have caught the ball, shot the, pulled it back, shot it, jumped, landed within 1.3 seconds. I struggled to conceive of that. So I can understand why the refs wouldn't think of that either. But I couldn't see the clock. So yeah. But to be honest, I couldn't see the play because it was kind of, there was a player in my way when I was on the
Mm.
court side. So there we go. But yeah, on that, if there's initially my thought was when Okoro took off, he was absolutely miles away from Scott
Mm.
Grayson.
Mm.
Yeah. And he jumped sideways. But we've had this argument before, haven't we? We've had this conversation before
Yeah,
a couple
yeah,
of years
yeah,
with Davion Hamlet about the shooter being able to jump forwards.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, he did it. I mean, obviously Tyreek Scott Grayson was basically being Bob Beamon,
Mm.
and he's got himself probably 6 feet ahead of where he was, and which has meant that Okara's been in his landing space, even though his landing space is far away from where Okara was expected it to be. Um, so I think technically it probably is a foul, just
Yeah.
depending on the clock. But I didn't think it was a foul in real time, to be honest.
In real time, I thought it was a foul. My only question was it after the buzzer or not?
You
But
you
it
at a
was.
different angle. So I'm
Yeah,
ground level
yeah,
and
yeah,
seeing
yeah,
things in
yeah.
front of us. And
Um,
follow the ball as well.
so let's go to you. You sort of touched on it. There was a bit of a nothing that ended up being an unsportsmanlike and a technical on Holden and Pulliam. It seemed a little. I don't know if
Well,
the.
I'm gonna let you talk about them, I think,
Yeah.
because I think, yeah, I mean, again, there are three clear as day arguments for replay in this
Mm,
game.
mm,
Incredible arguments for replay. It is, and every week it goes by,
mm,
and the league messing around with import rules, but they're not on the phone, or Neil Wilkinson's not on the phone to the owners saying, why haven't we got replay? Every week it goes by, it gets
mm,
worse. It's unfair. And I'm sitting here looking at a screen
mm,
5 feet away from Caton's with Neil McDonald, um, and they can't look at it. The
mm,
crowd's looking at stuff on the big screen, and the refs can't look at it. It's it's Kafkaesque. It's just nonsense.
mm.
The technology is there. We don't need to. It doesn't have to be perfect. Don't let perfect be the enemy of better.
Yeah,
If,
yeah.
if don't let, it doesn't have to be perfect. The Your directors, who obviously now use me,
Mm,
are getting better every week insofar as their ability to pick up on this stuff,
yeah, yeah,
because there was a good camera angle that they got on this one
yeah.
on Pullman, and basically and technically, unfortunately, the refs reacted to what kind of the end of it and said what actually happened, because
Mm,
what we saw happen, I didn't see any of it live, but
mm,
what we saw happened on the baseline camera replay was that Holden bumps into Pulliam, minor
mm,
bump, tiny.
mm.
I mean, virtually nothing, but bumps into Pulliam. Pulliam kind of discards him a little bit, maybe,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
not so far as a push, not so much as a formal push. Holden kind of sells it by going about 6 steps backwards,
Mm,
and then suddenly we've got three refs having a conflab, and unfortunately getting it wrong because um, as far as I understand, any physical contact can't be a technical foul. It has to be an unsportsmanlike foul. So they call it a technical foul on Holden, and it can't be a technical foul because Holden's made the first contact.
mm,
So if that's warranted enough, if he's culpable for that contact, which I think the refs must have thought he'd just been basically mouthing off at him, and
mm.
then Pulliam kind of pushed him off. Which I kind of don't like that idea of calling that either, because then you're
No,
rewarding
no.
you're rewarding the guy who started it. And by the way, I'm quite happy with Holden and Austin getting into Pulliam. I've got no problem with that. That's their
Yeah,
job.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
going for 15 points in 4 minutes. I've got no problem. A little bit of bump here, a little bit of talk there. Deal with it. They've been doing this all their lives. Not a problem with that. Um, but one to have a differentiation in penalties for that is a bit of a nonsense.
Mm,
But the reason is differentiation in penalties because they clearly didn't say Holden's bump. Because if they'd seen Holden's bump, it would either be nothing all around or
mm.
it'd been two unsportsmanlike fouls all around, and we just get on with it.
Yeah. To
So
me, to
if
me,
they
it
have really
was to me
see
it
that,
was a nothing. It was a
yeah.
if you want to say, look, lads, no more of that, or somebody's getting a punishment, fine. But
Well, the only thing I'll say in defence is that it was getting chippy by then.
mm,
It was getting a bit chippy,
yeah,
and
yeah,
there'd been a bit of a bump with Pulliam and Austin previously. I get the idea of get the fact you have to control the game. I get that, but unfortunately, the differentiation in the penalty was the issue. But I agree. I think if you're having to control that, then we've seen people punching somebody this year and getting unsportsmanlike foul, and for Pulliam to kind of get an unsportsmanlike foul, that was a bit OTT. But again, replay. I tell you now, the refs have the access to the replay that I had. That call would have been made, and it would have been the correct call,
Mm,
and it wouldn't have been a problem, and they wouldn't have had to react on the aftermath of a melee.
yeah.
That's the
Um,
reality.
so Knicks were trying to come back. They missed a ton of free throws, which kind of hurt their comeback. Let's get to what I assume is your point number three on the replay. 2:32 to go, an unsportsmanlike foul on Knight. Now I can tell from the way you went up an octave, Dave, that you weren't impressed. So I'm going to play devil's advocate here. In that,
Here's I'd say
go
why
on.
I wasn't impressed is because one, I didn't see it called
Yeah,
because there was a player in the way when the
yeah,
ref
yeah,
Kate went to the bench, so I didn't see it called.
yeah,
So the first I didn't really have much time to think about it, if that makes any sense, because by
yeah,
the time you figure, I thought it was a technical to start with. I
yeah.
thought it was technical, but and also there was no whistle on the unsportsmanlike upgrade. So they blew the foul, but when
I
they
I
came to
I think in real time it scored an unsportsmanlike on the baseline. I think that was the thing. I think it was scored. I don't think there was an upgrade. I think the
all right.
original
Well,
foul
I
scored.
think I think there was because I think that I watched the replay back there, and I heard the crowd booing when it came up as non-sports when Kate made the signal. Um, but anyway,
But but let me
go
just play devil's advocate.
on.
I don't think it was no sportsmanlike, but I think the reason why you might think that is he doesn't actually make a play at the ball with his arms. He sort of keeps his arms out, and I think therefore what's happened is there's contact down on the legs, and I think from the angle on the baseline it might look more like a sort of push or a shove, but not
No,
using the arms, and
well,
therefore it might have looked a little worse than it was.
I can correct you on that. I haven't been caught that caught say um, because I did whisper something to Ian as he walked past, and his response was to say he undercut him.
Yeah,
So
I
that
was
was
trying to say that, but I didn't
yeah.
say it very well. Yeah,
It
yeah, yeah,
didn't even say undercut. He made the signal for undercutting him.
yeah, yeah.
Um, I haven't. I mean, generally, when somebody is undercut as a fan or as a coach, you see it and it's immediately, oh,
Yeah, yeah,
because the danger is apparent. Yeah. And you think, well, that was a dangerous play.
yeah,
I never saw that in real
yeah.
time. I watched
But
it back.
I think because he didn't go with the hands, it
Yeah.
looks more like that.
I think
Is
he was
what I was
trying to get
trying
out
to
of
say.
the way.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
honestly
yeah,
think he
yeah.
was trying to get out of the way. I don't think there was any overt movement
Mm,
towards getting in the way. I think he just ended up in a bad place.
mm,
Um, and that's just a blocking foul
mm,
every day of the week. And that was so I was surprised. But again, Larry Austin is going fast. Larry Austin goes
mm,
fast. We had this a few times, last year whereby the speed he goes. You remember, I think there was one at Newcastle where he got thrown out against Bristol because he was going so fast. The ref didn't see him getting hit.
mm,
And when he ended up 4 feet into the stanchion. And when you're going fast and the slightest touch throws you off, then you're flying,
mm,
and that's the way it is. So again, it's the kind of the reaction of all of it. But again, ultimately, if someone turns around and 2 minutes to go in a 3 point game and isn't sure, or if the coach doesn't like it, he should be able to challenge, and the ref should come and look at them on it there, which has got the screen that we can see 5 seconds away.
mm,
And if the ref still thinks it's not sports, that's foul. That's
mm.
foul.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You can live or die on that. That's cool.
Mm,
I mean, everything's a matter of judgment, and a matter of degree. I get that. But seeing something like that happen once and then forming a view is not easy.
mm,
And all these refs are better than any of us, better than the fans. They have better angles. They're the best players in the court to see stuff. They study stuff. They review stuff. They will be talking about calls through the week with the other refs, all sorts of things, right?
mm,
But at the end of the day, you're still asking a human being to make an assessment effectively of intent in a fast-moving sport at 100 miles an hour, on seeing something once.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And the difference and the relevance is a possession, and in the second quarter, okay, so be it. But it's 2 minutes to go in the game. It's a second, it's a 3 point game. It's a big call. Either the coach should have a challenge, which they have in every other meaningful basketball competition now has a form of this. Every other sport has a form of this. Um, and we're too busy worrying about, changing import rules to actually improve the product of the game. That frustrates me. And the whole thing frustrates me now because last week we had a 3-point shot which shouldn't have counted
Mm.
on the buzzer in Manchester in the third quarter. And it's going to happen more and more. And there's just no proper. It frustrates me even more because I'm sat there looking at this picture.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Almost want to turn the screen around and show it to the
yeah,
ref.
yeah, yeah,
What do you
yeah,
think?
yeah, yeah,
Okay, I don't agree. Now, I'm a layman. I'm a opinionated idiot. That's
yeah,
fine.
yeah,
I'm slightly biased. So you
yeah,
throw all those things together. Yeah,
yeah,
that's the problem.
yeah, yeah,
But if I'm a ref, I want to see that. And I'll
yeah,
tell you something, Dan, as well. Every ref I've spoken to, and I speak to a few of them before the games. I spoke to the guys about 20 past six as I was walking to the TV. I spoke to Ian and Nick, and I think Kate was there at the time as well.
mm,
Just general about stuff. Every ref wants replay.
mm,
They all want to get it right.
mm. Yeah, yeah, they
Okay.
all want to get it
They
right.
all, they all every ref will be
Yeah,
happy with it.
yeah,
I mean, John Paul has told me that,
mm,
ultimately it's easier to ref in the NBL because you get the chance to go to the screen if they
yeah,
have to.
yeah, 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 yeah,
And so it's not technology because we're doing all these things. We're broadcasting live on the zone from all around the country. Live. We're doing, the time and the effort and I haven't been on the other side, but now I know now I now know, how professional the whole operation is in relation to the stuff that you guys are putting together on a
mm,
week-to-week basis for everybody. And and we're left with this nonsense whereby it can't impact the game. But with the fans can look at the scoreboard, but if a referee catches a glance, he's going to be
mm.
told off. Just
Yeah, yeah,
utterly crackers.
yeah,
So yeah. Anyway, I didn't think I'll stand by my view. Awful, but as I
yeah.
say, doesn't mean I'm right.
Yeah. So it's 94-91. 2:22 to go on the inbound, basically. White makes a mid-range 94-93. Eagles then turn the ball over. White misses a three. 124 to go. Eagles kept the play alive with a couple of offensive rebound, and then Knight open in the corner makes the three. Big shot that.
Made a few shots in that corner. We call it the Louis Sayers corner 'cause that's where he's just.
Yeah, yeah.
But now he's made a few big shots in that corner, and he's had a bit of a lease of life over the past 3 weeks. Seneca Knight.
Mm,
He had 37 at Cheshire, and he showed up in the trophy final. Um, and he's had a couple of big games since as well, and he just seems to be kind of growing in confidence in relation to getting to his spots. But yeah, a big rebound by Delpech, it was kind of a rugby pass out to Knight, his big shot. And that was the final bit of separation, which ultimately just gave Newcastle enough to overcome the Cheshire last minute stuff.
yeah. I'm interested to go back over the next play. 117 to go. Austin to the rim, called for an elbow.
Yeah,
I wasn't sure about that. You said a natural basketball play. So if it's a natural basketball play, why is it a foul?
they hit him in the face with an elbow.
But if
Natural
it's a
basketball
natural
movement,
basketball move, if
as
he's
opposed to,
elbowed him in the face, it's an unsportsmanlike foul.
yeah.
If it's a natural basketball play, why is it a foul?
Because in natural basketball, it's a reckless basketball movement because you made contact with somebody's chin with the
If
elbow. You
it's
can't.
reckless, is it not unsportsmanlike then?
No, I don't think so. I think it
Mm,
require. I think if you throw it out there as you're dribbling,
yeah.
that's fine. But if you go up, Okoro is basically coming back out of the way. He catches him on the
If the
chin.
elbowed caught him in, and if the elbowed caught him on the shoulder, would you still say it's a foul? Is it just because it's on the face?
It's a good question. It depends if he gained any advantage from
Mm,
the elbow on the shoulder, because that wouldn't be an offensive, wouldn't necessarily be an offensive foul because we see shoulder bumps all the time, we see
yeah, yeah.
contact all the time. But I do think that ultimately you can't clear space for yourself by popping somebody on the chin.
Mm.
I don't have a problem. I'm on the ref
If
side on that
he's
one.
moving like that, I'm just I don't know.
Yeah, if he's moving like that, yeah. But if he's now EuroLeague, that might be different. Because that was the first thing I said on the commentary was, is that an unsportsmanlike foul? Because
Mm,
he's hitting with the elbow. And in EuroLeague, I don't know if I'm sure someone will tell us subsequently
mm,
as to whether kind of any motion towards the um the face, anything with that to the face, even on a basketball swing through, would
yeah,
count as a sportsmanlike. It wouldn't be a flagrant in the NBA because I saw an
yeah.
NBA game a couple of weeks ago, and and that was the words I used on the screen were what the NBA announcers and what the referees said on the NBA game,
Mm,
which was a similar type of thing. It was a natural basketball movement as opposed to an attempt to hit. But yeah, okay, we'll find out, won't we?
Yeah, yeah, we will. So it's just because you said natural basketball player. I think if it's a natural basketball player, it's not a foul.
Yeah,
Anyway, we'll skip the next few plays. It gets to Knight. Knight makes two free throws, 104.95 with 40 seconds to go, and you think it's over. But with Cheshire, it never seemingly is. Uh, White a deep three, then a steal under the basket, and Austin scored. 25 seconds to go. It's 104. 100, and this is kind of again that was actually it.
it
But
was
Cheshire
Groundhog
are
Day.
that
Yeah,
team that in 15 seconds can score 5 points without you getting it out of your own
yeah, and it was
backcourt.
Scott Grace again made a great play
Yeah,
on the
yeah,
steal. On the Um, on the three, they defended the action quite well initially, but White stepped like 7 feet behind the
yeah,
three-point line and
yeah,
realized, and
yeah,
then again, it's not a natural thing for a basketball player to go and deny somebody that far from the basket, but
yeah,
you're
yeah,
up playing with 35 seconds to go, you should be doing that. On the inbounds, Mark probably should have called his timeout. It's a bit of hindsight saying
mm,
that, because but what happened at Cheshire last time,
yeah,
they
yeah,
made be on the inbounds, they got a steal because it
mm,
just came and basically just bull rushed the ball.
mm,
So he caught his timeout was probably 2 points too late, but they got enough. There wasn't Cheshire's vibe wasn't quite. It's not the same. You scoring races at home, scoring races away.
yeah, 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 yeah.
The 95-point rule again. Um, they never quite looked like they were going to get over the hump.
So Okoro 27.6 rebounds, Knight 24 points, 13 rebounds, Pulliam 20, Scott Grayson 20, Scott Grayson 24, Timberlake 20 and 5 assists. Austin 17 points, 10 rebounds, 7 assists, 13 missed free throws
That's the game.
for
That was the
Cheshire.
game. Newcastle missed three, Cheshire missed 13. Um, that's the game. There are
Mm.
very small margins in these games with Cheshire because there are so many possessions, so much up and down.
Well, speaking of possessions, and you'll have to look up on social media because I can't remember the exact number. But I was watching this game on Synergy, so I went and what is the possessions of Cheshire? Cheshire average, I think it's 95 possessions per game, and the gap between them and London, who are in second place, who are about 88, is
Yeah.
bigger than the gap between London and the team in ninth place, which I think is 84.
Well, it's remarkable that I did some prep on it. Actually, did do some prep before that game. You might never have guessed. Um, they shoot 75 field goal attempts a game. Nobody else
Yeah,
is above 70.
yeah, yeah.
22 foul shots a game. That leads the league.
Mm,
Yeah, yeah, they are. They shoot more threes than anybody else. They're second last in percentage.
mm.
They have less assists than anybody else in the league, despite the fact they make more field goals than anybody else in the league. The whole,
That was somebody asked me a question about time of possession as a result in a response to that tweet, and I couldn't it doesn't have that on Synergy, but what it does have is they lead the league in transition, they're last in the league in late shot clock,
yeah,
and they were last in the league in something else that was basically the opposite of transition. A half court. It'd be the half court. So basically, that tells you the speed at which they're playing without giving you seconds.
yeah. I mean, it's yeah, that's fine. That's they're just missing a little bit of rim protection. You have to say.
Yeah, definitely. So let's go to Manchester. Manchester basketball 72, London Lions 108. Hadzi Begovic was back for them. They didn't have Tu Holloway, their new signing, in. Madut was back, but he played off the bench. I think Lewis was out of the last game as well. He was back. London struggling to score early on. Certainly didn't look like a team on their way to 108 when they had 7 points in the first 7 minutes and trailed by six.
No, you're right. I mean, if you told me if I'd watched the first quarter and then you told me the score, it would have been,
Mm,
"Hmm?
mm,
Is something going wrong here? Is there a glitch in the matrix?" Um, yeah, they were a little bit. I mean, London, they were a little bit not flat, but they he's put together as the team he wants to start the games, Bozic, with a view to giving them some reps, and he's bringing his energy guys off the bench to a certain degree, in Adebayo and um, Sandy and co. That means kind of Delaires in the starting lineup, Silco's in the starting lineup, Rise in the starting lineup, Brisker and Peterson, and they're still meshing that unit. Peterson in particular got comfortable later in this game, started making some shots. He has to knock down shots in that unit. Um, well, I will say, and I'm going to say it again with the Leicester game, we're 3 weeks after another double ejection at London, and we've still got no news of any disciplinary.
No,
Silco and Shell.
well, I did hear a whisper. I did
Well,
hear a
well, you might
whisper,
have. You,
but
I haven't.
yeah,
The
yeah,
whispers don't count. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah.
So no, no, it's again. Beyond, stop worrying about your import limits and playing 20. Sort out your disciplinary procedure because it's a bit of a lottery at the moment as to who plays when.
Mm,
And that doesn't mean I want people banned. I don't want people banned.
mm,
I just want resolution.
yeah, yeah,
You can
yeah, yeah.
imagine if this was happening in the football and things were being dragged out so teams could pick the games that they prefer someone to be suspended for. There's a reason in the football that it's done for the next game,
Mm,
and decisions are made. And it's about the integrity of the competition. So
mm,
I'm on the watch on that one.
mm,
Um, but yeah, so they're starting. They're a little bit. He knows, I think, to win multiple games, that unit is going to have to play well, and he wants that unit in a starting.
mm,
Um, and they I think in due course, Begovic will probably come back into it for Ovi. But Ovi's been their leader the past 3 or 4 weeks. So, and Ovi was the guy who got involved in the thing in London with Shelton. He was kind of the enforcer. He was there, so he's kind of taken on the role within the team of kind of that team leadership thing.
mm,
So
mm,
having him start actually suits him because I think it also gets him invested. There's games whereby he's not, when he's invested, he's probably the best player. He's still probably the best player in the league.
mm,
He's a Pro A player. 2, 3 years ago. He was, I remember him as a mainstay for GB. We've got Ovi, okay, we've got with her. So if he decides he wants to um, really take this on, then he's a massive bonus for London. And so that unit wasn't quite firing offensively, but they do play defense, and they played great defense the whole game.
mm, mm. Manchester stayed in front until middle of the second quarter. London finished the half with a 14-1 run um, to lead by 10. And to be honest with you, that momentum just continued into the third. London scoring almost every time down. Manchester went to his own, but 2-3s quickly got them out of that. And it was just lead grow, 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 grow.
Um, I raised my eyebrows when I saw London signed another guy.
Mm,
Manchester obviously signed Irvin last week as well. Started effigy, I think, in this game. Um, this was a desperate loss for Manchester.
mm,
It really was desperate, and it wasn't. It's not. There's never the loss. It's the manner of the loss.
mm.
They have some very talented basketball players on that team.
Yeah, yeah.
There is no way
No
you
way
can.
they should be 40 down.
No way they can be losing by 40. They shouldn't be losing by 40 to London's team last year,
Mm. Yeah, yeah.
let alone London's team this year. And London's ball move, and they just got picked every mistake apart. Manchester became outside of probably Ashton and Langford.
Mm, mm,
You would probably say um, that Manchester were devoid of any inspiration. They were devoid of any um, kind of team focus, collective will, whatever you call it. And that's a problem for Carlin because you can't be getting beat by 40 on your own court.
mm, mm.
And it can't be that way. And they were running on them at the end as well. They were getting
Yeah, yeah,
layup after in
yeah.
transition. It became a little bit like watching the Sunderland Scorpions of
Oh, I
35
saw
years.
Dougie the other week. I
30
saw him
years
at the
ago.
final. He was his body was showing signs of somebody who played on them old concrete floors. I tell you.
Yeah, well, Northumberland saying watching it wasn't bad, but watching Russ Saunders, Dougie, and 4 or 5 local league guys getting beat by 50 every week wasn't great fun. But yeah, it was just bad. I mean, it was the type of loss which makes you look at everything that you're doing and say, it would lead to how do you keep your locker room together after that?
Mm,
Because everybody's blaming everybody else.
yeah,
you know.
yeah.
Um, and these are proper players. KO, Mitchell, Ashton Langford, Maddow, Irvin being around. They're proper players. They should not be getting beat by 4. And I'm not even at this point going to just try and say it was because of X or because of Y.
Mm,
It appeared to be almost a. kind of an organizational malaise. That's
Mm.
probably the
They
best way I
sort of
can describe
dissolved,
it.
didn't they? That was the
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, just kind of
Yeah.
dissolved into nothingness.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a phrase, and that cannot happen. You not at home. I mean,
Not at
occasionally,
home.
not occasionally you're going to get blown out on the road, and
Yeah.
occasionally
Yeah.
there's going to be mitigation. Things are going to happen in 1 or 2 games a season. But that team's coming off a couple of losses last week as
Mm.
well.
Mm.
And uh, just no way. And you saw how happy Bozic was and Hadzabegovic was at the end in the interviews. And quite right too. They absolutely did a number on them.
Mm.
And their defense was stifling, and they've got great size. And their ball movement really just picked Manchester apart.
Mm.
So yeah, they got to build some together in this Manchester.
Mm.
Can't say much more about it than that. Don't know how they do it.
Ashton Langford 12, DeBose 11, 11, Delaire 18, Stockman 17, Hadzabegovic 16. I could basically go on. There was 7 of them in double figures. Everybody ate, as they like to say these days. Let's go to the Cup. Bristol Flyers 64, Sheffield Sharks 88. Sheffield out on concussion protocol. So it was Louis Walsh and Johnson. That's 3 people, not 2. Wait.
Yeah.
Groves was out for Sheffield as well. We were sort of speculating, or you were, Dave, the other a couple of
Yeah.
weeks ago about that lineup with Louis Walsh and Johnson. Obviously, it was enforced on them, but it was an even start for the first 15 minutes of the game. What did you make of it?
Um, I didn't think Bristol would collapse the way they did
Mm,
2 weeks, 3 weeks after the final.
mm,
After the final, I said that normally, the pain it kind of spurs you on for a little bit, and you get a bounce back. And I did actually mention the fact that they had these games coming up.
mm,
And I think the final might have broken them a little bit more than we thought.
mm.
Um, because nothing happens in this league without a reason. Now, who was the only SLB player being interviewed on the in the crowd in the trophy
Prentice
final?
Nixon.
Prentice Nixon. Now, Prentice Nixon's not travelled from Sheffield to Birmingham because he likes to test the M42, right? He's travelled from Sheffield to Birmingham because he's been in this league a year now. He saw last year, he'd have seen the trophy final. He might have been around for the cup final when that was on. He'd seen the playoff final. He's gone along to watch the trophy final this year. He's probably looking at his career arc because all these guys are quite properly,
Mm,
right? And thinking that I need something. I want to be in this. I want to be playing in front of X thousand people. I
mm.
want to be on this resume. No, nobody else was. I didn't say anybody else was there with him. Maybe they
I
were.
think Ricky McGill was there. I think that was why he was there as well. I think I
Well,
might
Ricky's
be
a
wrong on that. I
yeah.
might be
Well,
wrong.
Ricky's a people person,
Mm,
so that wouldn't surprise me either. But that means that he's there because he knows what this means.
mm,
He knows what he wants to drink it in, right?
mm,
Giving up 29 points in the first half to Prentice Nixon
mm,
on basically 3 point shots, basically going to his left.
mm,
It was reminiscent of a Caro,
mm. Yeah, yeah.
in fact, and in fact, but here's the thing: they have less excuse for it
Mm,
than they have for Caro because the Caro's matched up on people who can't stay in front of him. With Nixon, your scouting report is that you have to make him drive inside 2 points inside the 3 point line. You saw the
mm,
one he made on Leicester last year in the
mm.
playoffs.
Yeah,
At the
yeah.
last one, dribble to his left, step back, and if the big guy's not up on the screen, he's shooting it and he's making it. And he made 7 of 8, and he was ready for that game.
Mm,
And this is the kind of the Forest had degrees of locked in.
mm. Yeah, yeah.
He was in strange ways behind 4 doors. He was absolutely ready for that game.
Mm,
He's focused on that final. You've seen the last one. And I'm afraid to give up, you give up 2 or 3, I'll live with.
mm,
But in the middle of the second quarter, when you're going, when your big isn't up on the screen and he goes and you let him dribble to his left on the screen, your big isn't up and he just pulls up and shoots another one like he's
mm.
like
So,
he's catching trout with his fingers.
yeah.
I mean, it's
So,
nuts.
so it's 32-35 midway through the second quarter. Jeffries hits a 3. Then Nixon makes 3 in a row, 32 uh, 47. He was, as you say, he hit uh, 8 threes, or was he 7 of 8?
I think it was seven
No,
eight half time.
yeah,
Something.
but he also hit 3 free throws as well, so you can add another one in there as well. He had 29 points uh, at half time. And to be honest with you, the second half was a bit of a non-event. There wasn't really a run from Bristol. It was pretty as comfortable as you could imagine from Sheffield.
Well, you give them a bit of mitigation because Sherfield's not there, and
Mm,
obviously Sherfield is a bit of an X factor for them, so I'll
mm,
do that. I didn't like. I mean, I'm not sure if Johnson's healthy. If he is healthy, I didn't like his body language.
mm,
I didn't see much get up and go in it at
mm,
all. Louis really struggled in this game,
mm.
and basically Walsh and Lewis were manning the foot. Now against that, Johnson had 25 points, but 22 points, but I
23.
didn't 23. I didn't see in him kind of the what I don't know. It's an intangible. It might be confirmation bias. You're looking for it because they lost by 25.
Mm, mm,
But during that second half, when to quote Rob Paternoster after the first leg at Newcastle, hey, half time we're down by 19. We say there's 6 quarters to go.
mm.
You didn't get that impression with Bristol.
Yeah.
I didn't get the impression they were clawing and kind of scrapping to get back. I just think maybe just a little bit of and obviously their schedule has been immense. We know that.
Mm.
Um, but I think mentally that they had a little bit of more stuffing knocked out of them by the final
Yeah.
than maybe I
Yeah.
thought,
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean Sheffield did a great job. They did what they were meant to do, but Sheffield are without Groves as well, and Groves is one of their more important players. And again, it's just like Manchester and London, you can't lose by 25 in the home semi-final.
Mm.
There has to be some point in time where somebody steps up, and if you score, and makes a play or makes two plays or gets the crowd going, because that crowd doesn't need much to get going,
Mm.
and nobody really did. And at the end, it was Andreas who, to be honest, was a bit lucky not to be kicked out.
Yeah, he was.
Uh, and who may have even wanted to get kicked out,
Mm.
because it was him that produced the energy
Yeah.
produced, by a couple of fairly audible expletives towards the refs. But it was him that produced the energy because that wasn't coming from on the court.
No, it wasn't.
You know what I mean? And just my view on that, I'm not soft now. I don't believe in professional sports, so industrial language is fine. I think when you call a ref what I think you called him, I think you're very lucky in there, and
Yeah.
particularly audible to most of the crowd. And just like when Stuart
When
walked on
when
the
it's when it's loud enough that the commentator has to apologize in case there's anybody heard it.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, I don't want to see people throw out, but
No.
but
But
you
to
know,
be honest with you, you said maybe he wanted to. I mean, we all remember
yeah,
Dunnerwold and the like. We
yeah,
talked about him before.
yeah,
There were times where Dunnerwold deliberately got himself thrown out because he was trying to light a fire, and there's loads of other coaches who've done it as well. I just went
yeah.
to Bob as the
If I've
easiest.
deliberately got technicals,
Yeah, yeah.
if I would deliberately get a technical, he would say, "I'm going to get one. I'm going to get one day."
Mm,
And I never, you generally not want to be thrown out, but yeah, of course, it is it's a legitimate way of trying to interact emotionally with and psychologically with your team,
mm,
because at least you're showing them somebody cares.
mm,
Um, but I'm also not a great fan of, I don't mind how much you swear at your team in a huddle, because if someone wants to sit behind the bench, that's going to happen.
yeah,
Deal with
yeah,
it. If don't
yeah.
don't complain if you're in the crowd. But if you're shouting at the refs loudly, and I said the same when Stutel came on the court against whoever it was
Yeah.
at half time. Everybody can hear the effing and the blinding, and that was at his own player, so it wasn't quite as bad as being at the ref. But even so, that point in time, there's a line which I think somebody has to draw. They got a technical, they
Mm,
let him off. So be it. But that was indicative of the whole Bristol thing. They were so flat,
yeah.
and there was no basis for being flat. They played two-legged basketball this year. They know what it's about. They played in the final this year. They knew what it was about. They just don't seem to be a particularly cohesive bunch at the moment.
Johnson 23, Walsh 15.6 rebounds, 6 assists. Robinson 13 points and 7 rebounds. Nixon 8 of 10. So he did make 8 in the first half because he didn't score in the second
All
half.
right.
He was 8 of 9
Well,
at half time.
right. Well,
So eight,
and
eight,
three foul shots.
yeah, and 3 foul shots. So
So
effectively,
you can't let Prentice Nixon score without coming and stepping a foot inside the three-point line. You have to make him work hard for twos. He's too good.
yeah. 29 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists. Jeffrey 16.7 rebounds. McGill 15 points, 5 steals. They had 19 points from turnovers and 18 second chance points. I'm going to switch it up and throw the order out. So we'll come to
Yeah.
Sunday's second leg. Sheffield Sharks 66, Bristol Fly 63, 154, 127 on aggregate. I got back from my game with 6:32 into the game to go in the game in the fourth quarter. At that point, it was a 32-point gap on aggregate, so I didn't bother watching any of it back. I watched the last 6:32, and that was it. Looking at the live stats, there didn't seem to be much to watch either. It was an 11-0 run that made it 13 to 22, but they never got 10 points in front. Never mind 25.
Yeah, it was probably the speediest I've gone through a game as well. I
Mm,
did watch it, um, albeit I was probably just waiting for you when I watched the last 5 minutes.
mm,
Um, there was a shot at the beginning of the third quarter, which I think Louis had an open three in the corner,
mm,
which would have put them up 12,
mm.
a couple of plays into the third quarter. And if that goes in, then if you can get to that point whereby you're kind of up 15 and you're only down 9 on aggregate, and the opposition starts playing the aggregate game as opposed to
Yeah.
the score on the scoreboard, you got half a shot. Bristol just can't score. If you're down 24 and you put up 63, you're not going to be winning. You got to hold them at 38 to win.
The reality is
Um,
they've scored 127 points on aggregate, and 127 points is, Cheshire in one period of overtime, isn't it? Sort of thing.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And
Well, they had
again in
122 against Cheshire last week,
Cheshire,
the
yeah,
week before.
yeah,
So
maybe
they,
should have
they
saved
scored
some there.
100, yeah, 127 in
Oh, it's at
Cheshire.
Sheffield going for 35. I didn't have
Yeah,
30,
yeah, yeah.
and that does make a little bit of a difference. But you know, maybe a little bit weary,
Mm,
um, mentally and physically. Again, that Andreas is probably aware of that. He's basically playing 10 guys. He had his whole bench on the court with 3 minutes to go in the first quarter. Um, the new point guard changes them a little bit. Because he plays slower and he doesn't look to shoot the ball. And that's a problem for the way that they were playing at their most effective when they were getting shots up. Robinson seems to have lost his confidence a little bit shooting the ball from outside. It's basically Walsh and Lewis are the two guys who are really standing up for them at this point in time. So they've got a brutal schedule as we've talked about. Um, the amount of league games they've got to play. It's really going to be a test of character because it's February now, and February is when people's heads start thinking about what am I going to do next year. Every person who's listening to this podcast would really quite like to know what job they're going to be doing in 6 months' time.
yeah, 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 yeah.
And these players don't,
Mm,
right? They don't know what they're going to be finished in 3 months. They don't know where they're going to be next August.
mm.
And so that then brings about a whole level of insecurities and diverging thoughts and what do I need to do and how am I going to keep going, how am I going to truck through it. Bristol, we now know, aren't going to win the league. I think we can probably safely say that.
The sweep is dead,
um
Dave. You didn't mention that.
the sweep is dead. Yeah, the sweep is dead. Woohoo! Another year. Another year. Yeah, happy days. Yeah, I think I think it was pretty dead anyway. I don't think they were going to
Yeah,
win the league.
yeah.
So, how much are they going to dig in and give those fans something to cheer in all these league games that they've got to come? It's going to be tough for them.
It is.
Um,
Mm,
Sheffield, Ricky seems to fit at this point.
mm.
Obviously, he's replacing Chapman, who also fitted.
Yeah, yeah,
So it's
yeah.
probably a score draw if you put it that way.
Mm.
But it's hard to even get a score draw when you're replacing a guy like him in the middle of the
Yeah,
season.
yeah, yeah.
So that seems to. And the one thing about Ricky is, he does occasionally frustrate you with his occasional lackadaisical turnovers, but he knows how to make a play.
Yeah, yeah.
He can make be it a pass or a shot. Um, they probably have actually still one player too many, Sheffield,
Mm,
because Jeffries plays better when he plays,
mm,
um, and gets his minutes. And obviously they brought in the guy Lindsay, who I think that was on a month-to-month contract, someone said. So we'll have to see what happens if
mm,
Matthews comes back. We don't know, but he's kind of being a bit of a bit part so far.
mm.
But Nixon took over, and this game was won by Nixon in the first half in Bristol.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
That's what it was. He mentally disintegrated Bristol,
Mm.
and you know, and this was just a game without jeopardy, I'm
Yeah,
afraid.
an
Realistically,
obligation to be fulfilled.
yeah,
But
and if if you're playing Cheshire, then it wouldn't be obviously because
Mm,
Cheshire's going to put up 90 on you, and you might miss a few shots.
mm,
But you have to come back from 24 when you're scoring 65 a game.
mm, mm. McGill 17, Clay 14 points, 8 rebounds, Routinho 10 and 7 rebounds, Lewis 22 points and 13 rebounds, Johnson 18, Walsh 14. And I said it on Twitter, but just before I came on, I think it's pretty cool that Jamel gets to play in the first ever major final in Nottingham.
No, that is actually a really good point
Mm.
and one that I hadn't seen. So I agree with that absolutely. And that, yeah, that kind of makes me fear a bit for Surrey.
Well,
Motivations come from everywhere,
yeah, yeah,
so.
yeah, yeah. Let's you've given the game away, Dave. Anybody who
Aware
didn't
of the
watch
score
any
won't be
of the
listening to this.
action and just
It's,
wanted to consume it through SMB, I'm sure there's people out there that do that.
yeah, if there
Let's
is, then if there is, I can give you a helpline number.
the
I have a
Samaritans.
helpline.
Uh,
Samaritans.
Friday night, Surrey 89ers 93, Leicester Riders 93. No Lawrence for Surrey. Steele then got an early injury, so he only played 2 minutes. He seemed to roll his ankle by standing on James's foot, which could be the weirdest way to injure yourself
Yeah,
that I've
it's,
seen. I'm assuming James was in the wrong position from the way he stood on him. Anyway, they did have Jalen Ray, and he was 4 of 4 for 10 points, 3 assists in the first quarter, and so he jumped out to a 31-19 lead.
yeah, and Surrey were playing a little bit like Nixon and Sheffield. They were playing with a degree of desperation.
Mm,
They wanted it. There was a focus there, and Ray is a mercurial scorer. I
mm,
mean, he is probably the mercurial scorer in the whole league,
mm,
insofar as when he's going, you can't stop him.
mm,
If he's getting, you ask me how would you stop him, and basically our game plan to stop everybody who was any good in this league for 11 years. With Ray, you don't let him touch the ball.
mm,
Once he's going, you don't let him touch the ball. Once he touches the ball, you got a problem because he has the step back, he has the acceleration, he has the shiftiness, he has the whole package. And one of the things that I've said previously about Leicester is Leicester matchup wise, they will struggle more against the teams going quickly than the teams who go methodically. I think losing Steele probably helped Surrey in that way, not because Josh Steele isn't a good player, and it certainly didn't help their depth, but it basically put all um, the ball handling responsibilities and scoring responsibilities in the hands of those two guards. It's a Gooden and ratio. They're creating everything. They're throwing the ball into James and they're getting shots for other people as well. But they're not worrying about Lawrence coming in. They're not breaking their rhythm. They're not breaking their routine. And Cholovinskis is going to give them. We're going to talk about him later.
mm.
But that really helped. But them do that. And Leicester's weakness, if there is a weakness, is against. I think it's last week devastating individual scorers. One their team defense is really good. But if somebody's looking in the face one on one, and someone like Ray in particular has the ability to get to a spot and rise up, that's a problem. Add in the fact that Adelican has been sneaky good the last 6 weeks, really sneaky good.
I
Um,
think it was sneaky. I voted for him for Player of the Month in December. I was a bit
well,
surprised he didn't.
when I say sneaky good, I mean sneaky unheralded good.
Mm. Yeah, yeah.
So
Unheralded.
that's
Yeah,
what
yeah, 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 yeah.
unheralded good as opposed to sneaky good. People don't necessarily realize. And is
It's a little
uh,
less sexy, isn't it? When it's
yeah,
just you're in there, nice footwork layup, and you've shot
yeah,
80%, you've got 16 points and 13 rebounds.
exactly, yeah. And on top of that, but defensively, he's also held at his end of the bargain.
Mm,
And
mm,
physically, he's not the size of Thompson, but he's one of the few who can, give him a decent battle. If that
mm.
makes any sense.
Yeah.
So with those pieces, so then sorry on that situation whereby there's nobody else to blame if you lose, it's only the guys on the court.
Mm, yeah.
There's not the guys who are sitting on the bench who think they should be on the court. So they basically ran Leicester off the court a little bit early, and Leicester were a little bit flat, but they missed a few shots. They will always take time to get into what they were doing. Um, I was surprised that Surrey were able to maintain it, and then I thought they'd blown it at the end of the third quarter. If I'm
Yeah.
honest.
Let me just run through
Um,
the stuff to get there. Johnson and Hunter and ones, Wright at 3. Leicester had a 13-2 run in the second quarter to tie the scores at 37. Same thing happened in the third quarter. Surrey out to a double figure lead, 69-58. This time it was Abercrombie, and this was the point where you thought, oh, they've lost this here in this little spell. He hit 4 3-pointers in a row. The last two are part of a 12-0 run around the last break to give Leicester a 73-76 lead.
And I watched them back down, and it was all off defensive mistakes. And this is what Leicester do to you because something like Abercrombie does to you because he's a sniper. And if you watch the plays back, three of them are on James. James struggles to guard the 3-point line.
Mm,
He gets caught, and you'll see at the end of this game as well.
yeah.
Three of them are on James, whereby he's dug down to help where he didn't need, where he couldn't help because he was guarding Abercrombie. He could have helped
Mm,
if he was guarding other people. Um, the fourth one was on a switch where they just switched, and Gooden was on Abercrombie, and Gooden didn't run him off, and that means Abercrombie basically can't see him,
mm,
right? Which because he's 5 feet down here and Abercrombie's up here.
mm,
And the problem isn't the first one or the second one. The problem is the third one, the fourth one.
mm,
You can't make that mistake after a guy's just made two. You haven't made,
yeah.
okay, every game, defense is a game of gambles and a game of reads and all that stuff. But I watched, I watched him back and it was James. James has to be better defensively if he's going to be a stretch. It reminded me watching Taj Green last year.
Mm, yeah.
Taj would go up and score, but then his head would turn, he'd be a step slower. And if you're playing against most guys in the league, it doesn't matter. You're playing against a sniper, it does. And Mervyn James is trying. I'm not saying he's not trying because he's recovering out there and he's getting his hand up and he's challenging. But it's a step. The game's in the mind,
Mm,
and I thought at that point, they'd built up a ton of momentum. They've got this bogey. It might not be in the players' heads, but it's in everybody else's heads about
yeah,
Surrey
yeah,
and Leicester.
yeah, yeah.
But they're never going to beat them. All that type of stuff, and then and Steele goes down, and you think, well, they're just not going to be able to sustain this. But to be fair, their offense is so good when it's rolling that they
Yeah,
did.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Because it was the first leg, I've not gone through the last couple of minutes, only the last couple of plays. So under 30 seconds, Leicester down two. Hunter misses a three. Abercrombie offensive rebound, but his shot is short and he fouls Adelican going for the loose ball. So 14 and a half seconds, Adelican at the line. He makes 1 for 2. So it's 93 90. 6 seconds to go. Gooden uses the foul they have to give. I'm interested on your view on that, Dave, because my thought in real time was, what's the worst that can happen in an aggregate game? I wouldn't want them to set up a play. I'd not give that foul in a league game. I would, but not in an aggregate game. What do you think?
I'm not even sure if I win the league game.
Mm,
Too many things can go wrong. The guy can raise up and shoot it and get three foul
mm,
shots. You got to defend for 6 seconds.
mm,
Everybody's moving from up the
mm,
court. Now you give Rob, who is historically been one of the best, if not the best, at drawing up plays in
mm,
the last few seconds, the chance to draw up a set. The clock stops, everybody gets to think about it, and they've got a ton of shooters on the court.
mm,
Now, in reality, it's only one possession, so it doesn't matter how many people dance around, but the players think it's important, but the rest
mm,
of us all know that in reality, so be it.
mm,
But for me, yeah, I just want to just play it out, play some defense,
mm,
6 seconds, play some defense. You know, I, um, it's one thing if you're doing that to break up if somebody's called a play from the sideline, yeah.
mm.
So if there's been a timeout beforehand and they put the ball in, they've called a
Yeah,
play,
yeah,
and you
yeah,
take
yeah.
and you know what you're getting, right?
Mm,
At that point, you've seen what to do. They've maybe got to do something else, or they haven't got a timeout left, so it all becomes a bit more scatter. I get that, but doing it on a live ball when everybody's running around and there's no immediate threat at that point, I'm like, go on, you guys make a play, please.
mm. Yeah,
It wasn't like you were coming off a foul shot. You come off a foul shot, which means that you should be set up defensively.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You come off. It's not even off a rebound where people are running. You might be better off. You might be mismatched or anything like that. None of that applies. So I didn't like that. I thought it gave them the opportunity. I think players are sometimes conditioned to do it now, sometimes without thinking the
Yeah, yeah,
ways and wherefores. So
yeah.
it just happened.
So I don't know if it is one of Rob's great out of bounds play or just a terrible bit of
Hey, to be
defense.
honest, I think you don't even run four, but they always
Yeah,
work.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But I've never seen this one before. I've never seen
Yeah,
this
yeah.
before, where Hunter runs to the opposite corner while all the screens are going on up the top, and James just completely falls asleep defensively, and Hunter just runs across the court right in front of him to the ball, catch, shoot, three. It's a nice play,
Hunter
but
made.
it's
I don't think that wasn't a play. Hunter made a
no,
read.
I think
That
so.
was that was Hunter making a read.
Yeah.
Because as you say, well, a number of things went wrong for Surrey on this play. Firstly, they didn't pre-switch it. What I mean by that is the top of the key. I think Hunter was guarding, Gooden was guarding Hunter or Ray, and James is guarding Abercrombie. Yeah. Now at that point, you kind of know Abercrombie's going to screen for Hunter, or Hunter's going to screen for Abercrombie because of where they are. Now, in those circumstances, what you can do is you can switch your matchup,
Mm,
right? So when they set their screens, you're back on the people you're meant to be on.
mm,
Right? So you actually, Fab used to do it all the time. He'd just jump out. I know who's getting the ball. I'm going to make sure I'm on that guy.
mm,
Right? And this happens in the NBA as well. So you mismatch on that. So you're saying if you want to run, you want to screen each other there to get some action. All you're going to do is put the guys who are meant to be guarding them back where they're going to go because we're going to switch. Then when the screen happened, they switched when they didn't need to because it wasn't much of a screen, to be honest. If
mm.
you watch it,
Yeah.
they kind of was half a screen,
Mm,
and it was before the ball came in bounds. So
mm,
they'd obviously been told in the huddle to switch everything, which is fine because then you don't have any miscommunications. But you didn't need to switch that way. And then what you have is that Mervyn James's head is on the ball.
mm,
Jalen Hunter's out the plays behind the, he's in the corner, but Jalen Hunter's smart as hell. So Jalen Hunter sees a basketball 101. As soon as your man's got his head turned, you cut to the ball
mm,
or the rim, cut to the ball. And because they needed a three, he's cutting to the ball.
mm.
Right now, they didn't need a three, but everybody thinks they need a three because it's
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it's doing a game. So anyway, and Jalen Hunter's I think has proved this year that he's somebody you'd be happy taking that shot,
Mm,
and he knocked
mm.
it down.
He knocked
But it was
it
bad
down.
defense.
Yeah. 3.2 seconds to go. Timeout, advance ball. James with a fadeaway. Two Leicester players diving at him, and he misses.
Well, I'll
So,
be honest. The one thing I'm surprised about with that, Dan, is that Jalen Ray took the ball out.
mm,
I'm like, you're taking away him as a. I mean, he might be the best passer, and there might be it's probably stuff they've run in practice, so it's an issue. But if I see him taking the ball out, I'm kind of happy he's taking the ball out
mm, mm,
because he isn't going to be getting it back. Not on the set that they were running with the curls. Or it's very likely he's going to be getting it back. And if he does, he's going to have what, 2 seconds, which isn't enough time to set his step back three. So I think having a big man who can pass it in is always a really underrated skill. A big man that you trust. You got to give it to your guards. You lose out in short shot clock situations.
mm. Ray, 28 points, 11 assists. He was plus 10 in 37 minutes and 3 seconds.
Individual score.
2:57 he sat down. I'm assuming it was the spell at the end of the
Yeah.
third quarter. 2:37, 2:57 he sat down. They lost that by 10.
Mm.
Uh,
Well, as well, we had a little precursor at Cholovinskas in this game.
yes, I thought he was excellent. Thought he was
Yeah,
excellent in this game.
I agree with that.
He was way better in the next game, but I thought he was
Yeah,
excellent in this
we'll
game.
talk about him after the
Yeah,
next game,
yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah.
Adelican, 17 points and 15 rebounds. James, 16 points and 8 rebounds. And I even said it in the pre-game interview with Lloyd, how well he played. And even Lloyd was like, well, we might need a bit more. And he got a bit more.
Yeah.
Thompson, 20 points and 9 rebounds. Abercrombie, 5 of 8 for 3 for 19 points. Hunter, 18 points and 9 assists. So let's come to today. Leicester Riders 86, Surrey 89 is 90. They didn't need the magic 89. They needed 90. Well, they would have won with that 89 as well. 179, 183 on aggregate. This was probably the most fun game I've called all season. I really enjoyed this. The atmosphere was amazing. The crowd, they were loud, both sets of fans. It was a bit helter skelter. There was so much going on.
It
Uh,
started out with offense and it got tight at the end, which was
yeah,
good.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
because it
Perfect.
was 55-48 at halftime, but ended up 90-86.
Yeah,
So you actually saw the pressure of the event and the pressure of the game impacting
yeah,
people. And
yeah,
they're the best games.
yeah. They are. Yeah.
They're the best games because
And also you saw people rise to the
the
pressure as
rhythm.
well.
Yes,
So
yes.
obviously no Steele and Lawrence. Sholovinska with his first top flight start. Leicester turned a couple of blocks into threes, led 13-5, but there was not really much in the first half at all. I actually thought the key run of the first half came in the last minute when Surrey scored the last 8 points in a row to lead 48-55.
Um, this game befuddled me. I'm going to talk about Surrey in a minute, but I just never saw this coming. Just did not see this coming at all. Being down players, having two young guys who basically are looking at them. Cholovinskas averaging 2 points a game, having 10 minutes, and Parkinson probably 0 point something points. I haven't even looked. Having them play such substantial and impressive minutes in a knockout game in Leicester, um, I just did not see that coming. And we'll talk about what it means about the way Surrey are doing things a bit later. Um, but what was noticeable, I thought, in the first quarter was that, certainly in relation to Cholovinskas, and we've talked quite a lot about him, he missed his first three threes.
Mm,
He got them up. He was not, and he was going to play, not play to watch somebody else play.
mm,
And what do we always say this about other guys, they get some early looks when they miss them when they're going to start going down.
mm,
Now, the thing with Nedas Cholovinskas is we have not seen in real terms that they are going to start going down
mm,
because he's currently shooting 17% from three,
mm,
right? So there's 22% from the floor. And so we don't know, and Leicester, therefore, ergo, Leicester don't know that he is professionally in that environment capable of making some of the shots that he did. But like any other player, getting those early looks helps you because it gets you into the rhythm of the game. And then it comes down to your competitive juices. Um, sorry, we're 0 of 7 from three after a quarter.
yeah,
And I think they were 14 at the half, so they made
yeah,
four in the second half. It's
yeah.
in the second
Second
quarter.
quarter, yeah.
And they started attacking. And I wouldn't. If you told me they just scored 55 points in the first half of that game with the lineup that they had, I'd have called you stark raving mad and tried to take as much money off you as I could. I just wouldn't see it coming, particularly as even then, Leicester were focused on Ray,
Mm,
and there was making it hard for him to catch the basketball. But those other guys really stepped up. Teo stepped up, Hunt stepped up, and when Ray got into foul trouble because Ray came out at the three. Ray was rocking, and he made some plays, and he's got two fouls. So Lloyd brings him out at the 3 minute mark of the second quarter, and I'm thinking, and you said, I'm not sure I would take him out, but when he's that hot, I'm not sure I would take him out, and um, I kind of had some sympathy for that because you only get one semi final a year. You might get one semi final in 3 years,
mm,
but he knows his players better than I do, and you do, and he took him out, protect him from foul trouble, brought him back in for the last possession, and they extended their lead.
mm,
And those minutes, as you say, being the fact that those minutes occurred without Ray being on the court, the fact that they went on a 5-0 run, if Leicester up, it had the feeling to me of a game whereby if Leicester got the noses in front, it was kind of done. So we
yeah.
played a lot of away games this year from behind, where they're behind 6 or 7 or 9 or 10, and they play nice basketball, but you never really think they're going to score. Never really think they're going to come back. That's kind of been their MO on the road. So it was always massive to me that they didn't let Leicester get the noses in front, and they didn't. So yeah, I agree with you about the last 2 minutes of the first half.
Mm,
Very, very important, but more about the rhythm that those guys got into early. And one thing I'll say about Leicester is, their starters are all up at like 34 minutes,
mm,
32 minutes on
mm,
Friday night, and they were up there again tonight.
mm,
And in the second half, basically, the bench didn't play apart from Wright.
mm,
And I think, when the team shoots 6 of 30, then again, might be confirmation bias, but you're looking at legs. And I think Leicester's legs
mm.
let them down a little bit.
Sholovinskas and Gooden threes had them out to a 12-point lead again, 58-70. Leicester were struggling to make threes, as you just pointed out there. Early in the fourth quarter, Hunter pulling Leicester back in it. Nedas Sholovinskas hit 4 threes. They were the only points they scored in 6 minutes, but they kept Surrey ahead. And it was one of those things where Leicester would get it to 4, and you think, oh, here we go. And then he hit a 3, and then they would hit a 3 back, and then he'd hit another 3.
Yeah, and there's the thing, Dan, right? All threes aren't equal.
No.
No, I know
Mm.
the rhythm of the game. There's a moment in a game whereby you get the impression that they're not losing.
Yeah. The
And
word, the
but
word neither I nor and could bring ourselves to use on broadcast was ballsy. They were ballsy
yeah,
threes.
fearless. Yeah,
Mm,
absolutely. Yeah, we're not losing. Now, the shock isn't that happened in a semi-final because players step up in the semi-final. The shocker is it's happened with a 19-year-old with his
Mm,
first senior start, who's shooting 17%.
mm,
Now you go back to his, um, last year he spent a little bit of time in the Lithuanian second division with Ritas, played 10 minutes, 21 games, played 10 minutes a game,
mm,
probably a bit part player. But then you go back to the GB under 18s
mm,
and B division, average 15.6 rebounds, shot 38% from three.
mm,
You know, so basically sometimes it's about when opportunity, meets talent. It's not
mm,
about the talent.
mm,
It's having that opportunity. It's what you do with that opportunity. You can't average 15 a game in FIBA European Championships if you're not afraid of shooting, if
mm,
you're afraid of shooting big shots.
mm,
Yeah. And um, and sometimes I think we underestimate how hard it is for young players in particular to play 7 minutes a game
mm,
because you don't get into any form of rhythm. If you're a pro player, you'd be twisting, saying, "I'm not play-" sorry, if you're an experienced pro player, you'd be twisting,
mm,
saying, "You're playing 7 minutes a game. How can I get into any type of, what do you expect?" Blah blah. Yet we're always looking for stuff in kids because that's basically all that they generally get
mm,
because we're overloaded with imports, as we know. And the reality is, virtually every 18 or 19-year-old with the talent of Nedas Cholovinskis in this country goes to America.
yeah, yeah,
So we don't see them, you know. Um, so so seeing that young man be so, as you say, ballsy,
mm,
top on. I don't know why he didn't use it. I'd have used it. Tell Rowe, get more
yeah,
ballsy.
yeah,
Yeah. But or intestinal fortitude,
mm,
whatever you want to call it, or even just make the sign. I don't care.
mm,
Make
mm.
the Fred VanVleet sign. Um, to see them do that and to do that when Leicester, with the crowds on its feet, Leicester are coming,
Well,
and
well,
on top
two
of
of
it,
them pushed the game from 79-80 to 79-86. I mean, that is
doesn't get bigger than that.
substantial. Yeah, yeah.
But let's just be honest about this. It's not just the fact you made some shots. We've all seen some British kids come along and make some shots in a big game, right?
Mm,
He rebounded the ball.
mm,
He offensive rebounded the ball. He was able to handle the ball when necessary. He's playing basically against Zach Jackson.
mm,
Zach Jackson's playing 35 minutes, right? So against one of, if not the most talented small forward in the league, right? And he playing with just an unbelievable degree of instinct and and understanding of the meaning of the game.
mm,
Right now, to him, I suppose it's his first game, so it's a massive game anyway.
mm,
But not to not back down from that and to get those shots. The biggest thing for me, actually, if I'm being honest, it wasn't even that he made those shots in the fourth quarter. You make them great, fantastic. It was that he shot the ones in the first quarter.
mm,
He was over three. He wasn't holding back in the first quarter. He was coming out to play.
mm,
He wasn't coming back to coming out to defer.
mm,
Once you get that mindset, everything follows. Now, obviously, you've got to have the talent to back it up.
mm.
And the guts and the balls to back it up, but he did. So yeah, a little bit more about him later on, but even so, go on.
But before we go into the end, also kind of overshadowed, but I actually thought Parkinson, the minutes that he gave them as
Parkinson
well,
was
yeah,
outstanding.
really good.
I mean, I've not seen. I'll be honest. Well, I have to be. Well, this is honest. What's the point of not being honest on a show like this?
Mm,
Stupid thing to say. Sorry. He's been the 11th man
mm,
this year. He's got a couple of minutes here and there. He basically hasn't shown that he had the capability to play in a game like that
mm,
so far. So far. But again, I'm not in the practice. We don't
mm,
see what happens in practice. We don't see how these guys do. It's about opportunity to a certain
mm,
degree. The coach is satisfied that you have the talent and the mindset, then you just got to wait for your opportunity.
mm,
And in pro basketball, it don't always come. So the question is going to be, when it does come, are you going to take it? And I thought, even before Nedas started going off in the fourth quarter, I thought Dejani Parkinson was incredibly good in this game.
mm,
All the things that had let him down previously, his decision making, um, propensity to commit silly fouls, whatever. He defended, he moved the ball, he did everything his coach could possibly want him to do, and then he knocked down foul shots, and then he knocked down a three as well.
mm,
I mean, just incredible minutes.
mm, yeah. Let's go to the end. So a Jackson three, and then he hit four free throws. cut it down to 86. He was playing on 4 fouls as well, Jackson, at this point. 86-88 with 42.8 seconds to go in the game. Leicester only on 2 fouls in the quarter. Cholovis, Nedas misses a corner three. Big challenge on a late shot clock. Leicester rebound the ball with the shot clock off. They run some time. Jackson gets past James. If there's anybody Leicester want in that situation, late game, going to tie it, little pump fake underneath it, Zach Jackson. The ball slips out of his hands and out of bounds with 4.3 seconds to go.
Jackson's first three, I just thought to myself, here we go, because he jab stepped on James
Yeah.
and got the three, and James got his hand up, but that's not enough on Jackson.
Yeah.
Again, they were picking on James a little bit, I thought. Maybe by design, maybe by accident, I don't know. But Jackson got that three. Then he made a couple of typical kind of Jackson kind of drivey plays and getting bumped and made his foul shots. And at this point, Surrey were just a little bit tight offensively. You basically said that if it wasn't for Cholovinskas that dried up, Ray had gone off the court with 2 minutes to go with an injury,
Yeah.
and then comes back in with 40 seconds to go. I'm not sure I would have been dragged off the court in that situation, but so they're a little bit in flux in relation to the players that got on the court, and they're kind of staggering over the finish line.
Mhm.
But what I will say is, absolute, if you go to that last possession, Mervyn James is outside the 3-point line. Now, that's possibly because they're up two and they don't want to lose,
Mm.
on the shot. But Mervyn James is guarding Zach Jackson 2 steps outside the 3-point line, which means Zach Jackson has to drive. And Dame Delicant is waiting for Zach Jackson as he gets kind of halfway around Mervyn James. And Zach Jackson sees Dame Delicant, I'm quite sure, in the corner of his eye, and the ball slips out. It only takes little things like that. Now, if he got something on the rim, maybe Thompson goes and rebounds it, and gets something in there. But he didn't get a shot
Or
up.
maybe he gets fouled and goes to the line again.
Yeah, I think he got past. James did a good job of not quite letting him
But I
get
think
fouled
James would have
up.
bought on a pump fake there from what
It's a,
we've seen of
to use
him.
your phrase, it's a ballsy move to pull a pump fake with 4 seconds to go.
Mm.
That's all that's. But anyway, it didn't happen. But what I will say is that they didn't let him. He wasn't comfortable at the 3-point line like he had been on the previous possession.
Yeah.
Means that being that little adjustment by James makes a massive difference to Jackson. And so that's my view. That's why that happened, because Leicester were always going to Jackson, because everybody else at that point, from Leicester, I know Rob basically played his guys the whole second half. There was no Washington, there was no Brooks, there was no Shelton in the second half. He played it like it was the last game of the season, effectively, and to a certain degree to get to a final. So it is. So there might be some legs in there as well. Uh, it was a weird one, because in the first semi-final Leicester played, they lost their poise early and then went helter-skelter at the end and nearly got back. In this game, they never really exuded the degree of certainty about it that I thought they might, and that's probably because they're not making threes. If you're making threes, and they made a couple of threes early, and then they're probably 4 of 27 the rest of the way, aren't they?
Yeah.
So that might be why. But there was, just there wasn't. I thought a little bit of apprehension when Surrey started scoring the ball. Not, I don't know if it was palpable, again, maybe confirmation bias, but just a little bit of apprehension, which, this can't happen again, can it? And they're a young team. They're an incredibly young team in pro terms. Take away Jackson, and the guys who are playing are incredibly young.
Yeah.
Take away Jackson, basically they're all first or second year players. And they didn't, and Wright wasn't there to bail them out, and Jackson tried, to be fair. Jackson, he made as many plays as he could. But the rest of them just didn't quite come up to it. Anyway, and then we had the old stack situation, didn't we? Where we're fouling the seconds away.
Yeah. And they had to foul 3 times, and in the end, there was only 1.6 seconds left, and Hunt made both threes. And despite the fact it said there were 2 timeouts on the board, Rob didn't call one, so I assume he didn't have one to call. And it didn't matter anyway; they were down 4, so that was the game. And so
You say that, you say that, you say that. You never know.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I've often thought about how would you try and draw a foul down 4. you probably try and do something sneaky like kind of hooking arms or something like that on the
Mm.
catch. You'd
Yeah,
have to create the contact and
yeah.
hope the ref was too dumb to fall for it.
But you still
But
have to make the shot as
you
well.
still got to make
That's
the shot as well. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a tricky one. But here's the other thing, Dan.
yeah,
What about if somebody does something that there's a holding foul before the ball
yeah,
comes in?
yeah. Technical
Yeah,
free throw, and
technical
then
one
yeah,
shot.
yeah, yeah,
Stuff
yeah, yeah.
happens. Anything happens. But no, I didn't see it coming at all. I thought Surrey blew their best shot on Friday. Um, Probably underestimated Leicester's youth and also their lack of depth. They basically played six guys in the second half. Surprised Colin didn't get in the game in the second half. He was 4 points, 2 assists in the first half. I thought he looked like he was ready to play. But obviously Rob trusts Hunter a lot.
Mm,
Um, and at that point, they were playing possession by possession. They were just playing to win the next possession.
mm,
And the reality is, if Nedas doesn't do something which is entirely out of his previous professional character,
mm,
then Leicester probably win that game. Um, but but just on that, I mean, what an accomplishment.
mm.
Sorry.
Yeah.
We've talked recently about them being sneaky good, but they're 4-10,
Mm.
right? But here's what I want to just think about a little bit, right?
5 and 10.
5-10, sorry. Um, they're playing with five imports.
Mm,
They cut Raekwon Brown,
mm,
who was basically who was basically an American filling a spot that Cholovinskas has just played.
mm,
Right? And they made the decision to play or to use the British kid in the rotation.
mm,
Um, we're in a league whereby we've talked about, it's more, better product, better this, better that.
mm,
More Americans, more of this, more of that. Now, Nedas Cholovinskas isn't your average 19-year-old Brit.
mm,
You can't just throw your average 19-year-old Brit into the SLB. He was the leader on the GB under 18s team,
mm,
so he's at the top of the trade really. But what we don't have within our system, and it's the greatest missed opportunity from the nonsense that we talked about last week. We don't have in our system a way to properly promote
mm.
competition between our British 19, 20, 21 year olds
Yeah.
to have them to have them climb and claw their way to the top. I'm not talking about Nedasism
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
Nedas going to be he's a writer second to be right. We don't have that.
Yeah.
Our guy, we don't see them. Right now, what Lloyd and Dan have done at Surrey
Mm,
is basically unheard of as long as I can go back. Well, certainly as long as I can go back in the recent past since I was a coach. That's 2010. They cut an American and didn't replace him to give a British kid more minutes.
mm. Yeah.
Right? And the reason, and I'm absolutely straight down the line on this, the reason that they're 5-10 this year and 8-7 this year is probably because instead of it being 8-7, it's probably because they did that.
Mm,
Because as I say, Nedas has is 2.5 points a game, 22% from the floor, 17% from three.
mm,
Right? He has not been a plus positive on court for them from in many of those games. Partly because he's been playing odd minutes here and there, whatever reason. Partly because he's young and he's learning it. But in doing what they did, they just got their reward.
mm.
They probably got it quicker than I thought they would. I'm
Yeah.
sure they got it quicker than Rob thought they would,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
But they just got their reward. And they just pointed a signpost for everybody else,
Mm,
which is why have we no what efforts are our clubs making to secure not just the kids who come up from their academies who may or may not make it,
mm,
right? Who are local and comfortable bodies for practice. What efforts are we making to secure the best 18-year-olds in this country playing in this country,
mm, mm,
right? Who now who are coaching? Oh, and more importantly, what structure have we put in place to
mm.
ensure that we can identify them? Because
Well, it's that thing, isn't it? And I know you've this is a drum you've been banging on for years, Dave.
30
Is
years,
is
30
is is that thing of so we have our structure coming up to EABL, and then what? And for most players, there's you will get a Cam Hildreth who can play up at SLB level. You will
Mhm.
get a Nedas who can uh, make the jump, but for most of them, it's too big a leap from that to playing significant minutes. So what is the in between that we use? And in some ways, this is my thing. Is actually if the governing body would be, I think, better served trying to find some way of bridging that gap rather than trying to get £1 million out of the professional league. I just
Yeah,
think
and
whether
from
it's an
basketball
under 23 league, whether it's a whatever, and I know that's a thing that you've banged on about, and I don't know how it would work and, all of that, but it just feels like from 18 to pro seems at the minute too big a gap for most players.
there's no market. And there's no hope. So if you're
No.
an 18-year-old, you're going to sit, unless you are, as I say, the very highest, but we're not talking about the highest, we're talking about building a group of players in bulk to come through a professionalized system, right? We're talking about a European style situation.
Mm,
And obviously Dan Clark has experience of that.
mm.
And
Yeah, yeah.
he'll have seen it was 17 and 18-year-olds. He'll
Well, he
understand.
was one, wasn't he? He came
Exactly.
through. Uh, I've forgotten the club now.
Mercia?
What?
No.
No, 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 no. It'll come to me in a minute. Carry on.
Okay. Um, Estudiantes.
Estudiantes. I was thinking it's something to do with kids and it's students. That's what it is. Estudiantes. Yeah, yeah,
Estudiantes.
yeah,
Um, and he also played with lots of kids like that.
yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah,
they are in Spain.
yeah,
He's been access to it, right? So he knows what kind of vertiginous growth curves you can have, right? But that's not no good if they don't have hope when they're 17.
mm,
Uh, Nedas has clearly decided he's going to go down a European path. He went to Lithuania last year. He's obviously got Lithuanian heritage,
mm,
right? So he comes from somebody who is not going to be as blinded by the fact that I can go and play in a junior college in America.
mm,
And he's also fortunate enough to have come across Lloyd and the pathway and all
mm.
sorts of stuff. Yeah.
And obviously that was the route Dan took as well.
That was a route Dan took as well.
Mm,
So we're doing that. But so what we talked about last week, shared information,
mm,
shared knowledge. How do we do that? And it's not a question of just bringing you're going to get your shooting stars, you're going to get Cameron Hildreth, you're going to get Tozan,
mm,
you're going to get people who are, great Ossabo, you're going to get people who are literally Jeremy Sohan, who are aiming at a trajectory which is far beyond where we're at, right?
mm.
But what we don't do is offer any hope for the kids who maybe had have a chance of making it,
Yeah, yeah.
the mentality to make it, who see no options, no career option in the UK, and no financial option in the UK at that point when they're making their life decisions. And the reason for that is, my view, we have no structure. And that's always been, you see, I've banged on about it, I have banged on about it, but
Mm,
there is no structure to stratify. And apart from Sam, and Sam's not a Sam at Hoops Fix, and Sam is not a structure.
mm,
No one deserves Sam because Sam does stuff which fills a massive gap in the market, but
mm,
he does it on a shoestring, on his own volition during the summer.
mm.
He does what any self-respecting governing body should be all over,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right? And during the summer is different to what's going on during the season.
Mm,
Okay, to be blunt, part of the reason why Tozan is where he is because of COVID, he came back, he practiced against Justin Gordon for 6 months.
mm,
Right? That has to improve your curve. Now, obviously, he's on a different curve to SLB. I get that.
mm,
Okay. But it makes you see stuff and makes you do stuff. Okay. And there's no problem with kids practicing, but they need to be able to play. And the concept that in any other sport in this country, that properly professional teams will not have competitively organized youth competition. And I'm not talking about 16s or 18s. I'm talking about competitive preparation to play. Premier League has an under 21. The cricket teams have academy squads, everything. The suggestion that, and we don't, because no one's ever looked far enough in front of their nose to do it, and no one has ever decided whose problem it is.
mm.
The club
Whose
say it's
cost it
not.
is. It's whose cost it is. There have been
Yeah,
under 23s teams at times. I may have even played for one.
yeah.
Playing in D3, and it's one of those. Whose
Eagles
cost
did
is
that.
it?
Eagles did that about 3 years ago, set up
Yeah,
under 23
yeah.
team in D3. It's a waste of time.
Mm.
Waste of time because the only point of running on a 23 team is that should be comparing people against your peers,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then we can build an understanding of the talent level. You can see which kids
And to be fair,
which kids aren't coming up.
our academy systems generally all have somebody is have a team in one of the divisions, depending on how.
So all it takes is a coherent restructuring,
Mm.
um, and I hope, but like we're just in the
Yeah,
politics again.
yeah, yeah. We
We're in
are.
the
Yeah,
politics
let's
again.
let's let's.
I'm to leave it behind. But anybody with a modicum of sense, and hopefully, if Dan can't bring some influence to bear, and I don't know, again, but if what Nedas Cholovinskas did today isn't a wake-up call for everybody else as to a pathway, you cut an American and you trust a British kid who doesn't immediately help you win, but by goodness, you get the rewards within about 3 or 4 months.
Mm,
And you see what you saw today. You see his chutzpah, you see his energy, you see his assuredness, you see his confidence, and on top of that, he can play,
mm,
which you can have all those things without being able to play, right? And then you had Dejani Parkinson, who basically we have hardly seen, but you assume he's been working assiduously in practice, and when they need 12 minutes out of him in a big game or 15 minutes out of a big game, he produces.
mm.
Right? Um, it's there, So I am humbled by Surrey's success because I just find it. Um, I'm happy for them because but they shouldn't have lost 40 times to Leicester. No one should lose 40 times to
Yeah,
anybody.
yeah, yeah.
I'm happy for them getting to the final. Um, but more so, there is a bigger picture at play here, and the way that they did it today, and the way those two young men played. um, Everybody needs to be looking at. And so, no, we don't need to change the import rules so we can bring a couple more Americans in to fill up spots, right? What we need to do is to commit to investing properly in our youth, particularly if now. I mean, here's me. Dan, the concept that we, sorry, I'm getting into politics here. The concept that the league should pay £2 million a year to the BBF and take away if they had that £2 million, which would be far better spent on the development
Mm,
on the career pathways of young players and the career and the academy structures at each club.
mm.
I mean, it just makes what we said last week even
Yeah,
more
yeah,
short-sighted.
yeah. It
But
does.
there we go.
And again, without rehashing it all, if in 2006 somebody had had that idea when they had all that money, maybe we'd be in a better place now. But
What was
sadly,
it? Inspire a generation.
yeah, yeah,
It was
yeah,
a load to use a non-row phrase. It was a load of bollocks, wasn't it?
yeah, yeah. It
It
was.
really was. I mean, it was inspire a generation till the money runs out, and then
It was
and then we'll
inspire a
ignore
generation to watch telly.
ignore a
Uh,
generation. Yeah.
Jackson 22.7 rebounds, Hunter 18.8 assists, Abercrombie 16 points, 9 rebounds, Sholovinskas 19 points, 5 of 9 for 3, 6 rebounds, Gooden 19 points, 8 assists, James 16 points and 8 rebounds. And you touched on it there, but we have to mention the Rob Hunt Memorial stat that was Leicester had not lost to any of the Surrey teams since November the 11th, 2012. This was game number 47. They'd drawn two and won
I do
44.
say I did kind of call it last week, didn't I?
Mm. Yeah, we talked about it as the perfect
The
redemption
perfect way
arc,
to
and
finish. I mean,
so
I
it played
wasn't,
out.
yeah, and I really wasn't expect that was more in kind of, yeah, that was less an expectation than you would think, I think.
Mm,
Um, I feel a little bit for Leicester because the reality is that I think they're just about the only team that hasn't changed, the only team that hasn't made a change this year.
mm,
They've lost Blake Bowman for depth. Um, they probably are one reliable guy, one extra guy off the bench short that Rob really
mm,
is able to trust. And they've obviously, for whatever reason, most likely, I'm guessing financial,
mm,
decided that they're not in a position to bring that in. And, when you've got other teams, as I say, bringing in G League guys and this,
mm,
that, and the other, they still had an impressive start to the season.
mm,
What you've seen, unfortunately, now is that they've only lost like, what, 4 games in the league. They won. 16-4 in league and trophy. Because they won all their trophy group games, 16-4 in the league and trophy.
Mm,
But in the one-off games now, that's twice, probably in 4 games, they've not played the way they play in the league.
mm,
They've given up 93. Maybe the extra intensity of the competition, the extra intensity of the games,
mm,
kind of impacts on them because of the depth. It hurts them more depth-wise than it does on a game-to-game basis in the league. So yeah, I think and it must be a bit raw for Leicester, for Rob in particular, to watch all these other teams bringing in these extra guys.
mm.
That's what I say. I say sorry. To be fair, sorry, haven't added anything
Sorry,
either.
sorry, I haven't.
Sorry, haven't. Sorry, haven't either. So in the same way, but there is a bit of an arms race going on in the league at the moment.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And sometimes if you're at the bottom end of that arms race, and fans don't necessarily appreciate how well you're doing just to kind of keep up the pace with it.
yeah, 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 yeah. Particularly with the history that they've got.
Yeah.
So there's a perception, I think, that
Yeah.
doesn't mirror reality.
Sure.
So let's have a look at the league table. London, Sheffield, and Leicester obviously didn't. Oh, London played. Sheffield and Leicester didn't play. So London are top 12-4. Sheffield 11-4. Leicester 10-4. Newcastle 8-7. Cheshire 8-8. Manchester 5-10. Surrey 5-10. Bristol 4-6, and then Caledonia 2-12.
Mm. Yeah, not much change.
No. The old away wins are moving up though after
Yeah.
me pulling out that stat the other week. I timed that well before it disappeared.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of it is schedule, and a lot of it is health. No. I'm still unconvinced that even I'm still unconvinced that anybody apart from the top three can bridge a gap. I don't think Newcastle will be the nearest. I'm not sure they can get there. I mean, I might be wrong. They were talking after the game on Friday night. Carl, who's a very focused guy, was talking about how they're going for the league and all of that stuff. Because they've got to play pretty much perfect basketball for the next month and a half to do that. I'm not quite sure they've got that in them, but we'll see.
We will indeed. So that'll do it for this week. Just before we go, just wanted to say thank you to everybody who's reached out to me over the last week or two after my little
You're
rant last.
semi-viral. You went
Yeah,
semi-viral,
I
man.
made it to Hoops Fix. Woo!
Yeah, yeah. You got a semi.
Yeah, indeed. It was actually quite overwhelming the amount of people that from inside from around the game and supporters as well, and basically all agreeing. So
Yeah,
so
you're
it's
a
nice
polemicist,
to.
and you're quite. Yeah, well, it's something of an illusion to think that just sitting here and talking into computers on a Sunday night can change much, but somebody's got to say stuff,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
And what you said last week was absolutely on the nod, and I'm glad Sam liked it enough to say it.
Mm,
It was said without agenda,
mm,
and that's the biggest thing here. I like that the two of us don't have an agenda
mm.
other than
We
getting
have, we
better.
have an agenda of wanting everything to be better. We want it
They
to be
want
better,
everything to be better.
but within the context of where we are and within the realms of possibility. And we don't want
Absolutely.
that's basically. I think on that note, I'm going to wrap it up. But thank
Yeah.
you to everybody who did reach out. So Dave and I will be back next week. Doubtless it'll be on a Monday because I believe I'm working next Sunday. I'm pretty sure Cheshire are playing next week.
Yeah, they
So
are playing somebody.
yeah.
Um, Leicester, maybe.
Well, they were supposed to play Leicester today, I think, and that got
Right.
moved. I think I can't remember. Anyway, it'll be in the schedule somewhere. So Dave and I'll be back next week to do it all over again. But for now, goodbye.